here is that every objective in the ISAT will not be assessed on the DRA. And the same thing, everything on the DRA rubric will not be explicitly taught in an objective over the summer. And I think those of you that are sort of familiar with like reading growth versus reading objective mastery, like this is constantly in struggle for core members, like not only at Institute, but then in the region, like, do I teach objective mastery reading? Do I teach growth? How do those things connect? Our big message is that like, if you teach every objective and students master it, that should lead to growth on the DRA assessment.
Are they still tracking activity mastery?
Yes, so basically the tracker will have like you'll put in their initial DRA score, it'll give them a goal, and then the formative tracking is daily objective mastery. So we're basically saying to core members, look at this tab in the tracker. If it's green, or like if your kids are mastering it, that will serve as a proxy for you on mastery on the DRA. And so basically what we're saying is like, okay, so on the DRA rubric it's a 1, 2, 3, or 4, where we really want, if students got all 3s and 4s, they would be on an independent level on the book. So basically what we're saying is, they'll be, if they can perform this set of objectives, they'll be at a 3 or 4 on these specific rows, and this is why. So I asked Jill to talk a little bit about this because I showed them this a little earlier and she got real excited about it. So I want her to tell you why.
Yeah, well, I guess I'd say, like, as a school director, I think one of the things that this made me so excited to see was that it just gave the core members a really good idea of what they were working towards at the end of Institute, instead of just being like, today I'm doing this, but it's not really connected to tomorrow, and even if it's connected for a week, it's not connected to the next week. But this just gives core members a really good sense of what they're working towards at the end of Institute. And then also as a program director, I just thought like the level of backwards planning that I want my core members to have, I feel like this is really showing them this is what you need to do. You need to know at the beginning of the year where you're going at the end of the year. And this is really going to lead them there. So, and also I think a lot of core members always say like, I never learned reading like this. No one ever taught me this objective and this objective. I just learned how to read. And so I just feel like this gives a much more holistic picture of how these objectives fit into reading comprehension as a whole. So it's just going to build that core member investment.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a regional connection. Our elementary core members were the most, the core members that were data driven first in the fall versus like our core members who were like tracking content, because once we heard they were doing the DRA in Phoenix, we bought it for them to use and they knew how to use it, so we didn't have to teach them how to use the Gates McGinnity or something, so they were like using data from the get, and it was great.
That's awesome. And I think what we were able to do this summer is connect then like how DRA growth, how you use the daily objectives to lead to mastery in the DRA. Yes, sir.
This makes perfect sense to me. But have we seen for sure that by teaching objectives and seeing mastery on those, reading level growth does in fact go up, and there's correlation between those?
Yep. Do you want to speak to that?
I guess that's my answer.
Yes.
So, that's how I mean, I did a lot. I did an intervention reading program, and I had to do a lot of research about how well it was helping my students, and I started reading 80. And so I had to do a lot of supplementing, and so I just went to a lot of workshops over the summer about reading and reading growth and like what to track and what not to track. And my core members like track daily mastery for their own practice, but
Of specific skills.
and that part is really difficult, like tracking daily objective mastery of reading, especially reading comprehension, when you're aligning it to like a growth measure. And like still, this is probably the best test to that. The Gates, my upper level component being Gates because they have 150 students, but Gates is just like not awesome yet. So this is awesome. I don't know, like, so yes, I mean, and is the short answer.
Yeah, and I think it's not, like I said, it's not direct correlation, but basically what we tried to do was, when we looked at the state standards, choosing specifically to write objectives that we felt aligned. So let me give you a really real example of this. I think the performance objective for this is students will be able to just describe the plot development of a story or selection. We are actually asking students to, and this has been changed, to summarize a story, including the conflict and main events, all of this. The DRA asked them to just summarize the book using all of these things as evidence. So we tried to really like put information in our objectives that aligns to the way they're asked the question on the DRA, if that helps a little bit. Yes, ma'am?
Can I say what I told you earlier?
Yeah.
Okay, so this makes perfect sense to me because it's like the Karate Kid, right? And so me and Jill were talking about it and how there were things that Mr. Miyagi made Daniel-san do that he was like, why am I doing this? But then you saw that he did the exact thing when he was fighting, right? Like waxing the car, did the exact thing, right? But what about
catching the fly.
Right. He never did that when they were fighting. He never did that when they were fighting, but it got them to be better in the fight. So it's kind of like you might not do that exact thing on the DRA, but reaching those objectives is going to get you there, like catching the fly with the chopsticks.
Masterful. Which may show up in CMA too, by the way. Your CMAs might have to do that exact thing loud. In addition, just to get, in addition to what we're doing in daily lesson level objectives, we're also going to be having guided reading groups during Math Lit Hour that is going to get at oral reading fluency for kids. So in addition to these objectives, which we'll get to the comprehension, we're going to do guided reading that gets to like oral reading fluency on grade level. Yes?
Just for my own clarification.
Sure.
I understand objective mastery, reading growth is just basically based on a test.
It's based on a rubric, and we're gonna like get into like all the specifics of that. But basically, it's oral reading fluency. So can kids read accurately with the right level of fluency? So it's timed, and then a comprehension rubric, which has different elements at different grade levels. So basically, like the big ones are like, do they understand what happened in the story? Can they describe characters? Can they summarize? Do they understand how the story connects to their life? And what reading strategies did I employ to understand this text? Like that's the bigger stuff. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And you can answer this later.